Zoom class for SVN3E Grade 11 Workplace Science, and I am the teacher, Bronwyn Slade. If you'd like to join us live today, you can call us at the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and on the television at Bell Express U channel 972. You are always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available from me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our radio Zoom classes are scheduled from Monday through Thursday from 10 to 11 in the morning, and we are in our 5th week of our 9-week course. At this point, as we are almost halfway through, you should definitely be thinking about what work to submit for marking. So a reminder, the key questions are listed at the end of each of your IL lesson, and you need to do all of them. Some of them are check your understanding questions, some of them are activities, and some are review questions. They have a little key icon listed at the end of your IL lesson, and just make sure you're doing the ones that are assigned there. Explain your ideas and thoughts in complete sentences, and also make sure you're actually answering the question that's being asked. You can do this by hand or electronically. You can write in your workbook. This is yours, so you can take notes, you can highlight, you can do whatever you want in your workbook. It is yours to keep. However, the spaces at the end are pretty small. So if you're answering questions in your workbook, that's a pretty small space to try to do it. And lots of things, you need more space than that. So I encourage you to not just do it in your workbook. If you're going to hand it in electronically, either PDFs, Word files, and Google Doc files are all the easiest for us to open. So using one of those file types would be the best. If you need to use something else, let us know and we can figure out what works best for everyone. Okay, so how do you submit your work for marking? There's 3 methods. The first is to send your work in electronically. You can scan your work if you do it by hand. Apple devices have the Notes app that has a scan function, and Android devices have the Google Drive app that has a scan function. Both are fairly straightforward, and you just need to point and click basically. So touch base with me, and I am happy to support you if you need help with that. If you need to take pictures, I'm sure that's fine as well. Just scanning is a little bit smaller files. Then send it to us electronically. So you can email it to studentwork@nnec.owen.ca and CC it to me, bronwyn.slate@nnec.owen.ca. I actually am no longer the one who is marking, so I will add in the contact information later for our marker, John. Sorry, I just forgot to do that on this slide. You can also drop your work off in Stu Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our location, 74 Front Street. We're the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. So put it in there and we'll get it back to you as soon as we can. The third method is to hand your work into your DEC, and your DEC can send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. Students are also welcome to fax their work in if they have access to a fax machine. So you can, even though I'm no longer marking for this class, you can still connect with me through social media, and all of our lessons I'm still recording for term T1A. Sorry, just trying to remember what we call it. So all of our lessons that for this year I am teaching this term and uploading on YouTube. So my YouTube channel is B-Slate Wahsa, and all of our lessons are shared there under a playlist called SVN3E. So if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, then you'll get notifications every time that I upload them. Also under that playlist, there is a sub playlist that has all of our supplementary videos on YouTube listed there, so you can connect to them, the original sources, and get more information if you'd like. Science is really visual, so I strongly encourage you to access the videos, either joining me live through Zoom, even if you don't want to talk to me, just watching, or watching the YouTube channels, the replays there. If you don't have access to reliable internet that makes either of those possible, then let me know and we can send you a copy of the recordings so you still get the full experience. So as I said, our course is no longer, it's a little bit different right now. Things got shifted. So I'm the course instructor for this term. After this term, I won't be the course instructor. It will all be John. But right now, as I'm broadcasting, I am the course instructor. So you can email me if you have questions about the lessons at bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca, or you can still connect with me through Facebook at bslate Wahsa, or call my extension is 2209. But John is the course marker, is the person who's actually marking your work. So sending your work directly to him, is his email address is jstradiottito@nnec.on.ca. And you can call him at the office at 807-737-1488, extension 2210. You can also call the toll-free number 1-800-667-3703 and get him at extension 2210. His office hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and he takes lunch and isn't available from 12:30 till 1:30. So if you have questions specifically about how things are going to be marked, or about specific questions, then I'd suggest reaching out to John, as he's the one who's going to be actually grading you. Things just got shuffled around this term, and it makes more sense for me to continue to teach and him to mark than for me to stop teaching and him to pick it up at this point. All right, I still believe that it's important to position myself within the context of how I'm teaching, as my perspective is still going to shape how this course goes. So I, as your teacher, have white settler ancestry. I have white privilege. This shapes the way that I have experienced education, how I've learned, how things have been easier for me to access because of my white privilege. I recognize this, and though I can't change that experience, I do work to acknowledge this and dismantle those systems of white supremacy within our education system. I do not get it right all the time, I'm sure, and I might not realize that I'm getting it wrong, but I'm on this journey to work towards decolonizing our education practices and making them more accessible and equitable. I live in Northwestern Ontario on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe people and work to integrate the teachings that I have learned and the understandings I have from the work I've done in this community to integrate those within our science curriculum. As an educator, I always have lots to learn and unlearn. This is a lifelong journey. There's always new things and ways to be better. So I'm committed to this process, but it means that I make mistakes and don't get things right all of the time. So if you have any feedback for me, please feel free to share that. Our textbook is also Eurocentric. It is written and values the experiences of white people and white communities more than others. This is problematic, and it is not it is part of the system of white supremacy that is our education system. So though it is not intentionally racist, it has that because it ignores Indigenous, Inuit, and Métis knowledges and experiences. It only talks about white scientists and focuses on white communities' experience of things and doesn't dive into the complex realities of Indigenous, Inuit, and Métis people within Canada and how their experiences and knowledges are valid and worthwhile to pay attention to. The textbook just doesn't go there. So this is something that is problematic, and I have been trying to find other resources, but it's not something that I've been able to find so far, and I'm no longer responsible for this course, so that I don't know where it will be going in the future. All right, we are continuing on with Unit 3 today. We've learned about how environmental factors can cause disease in humans, how human bodies works, and how that takes in toxins that are in the environment, that are contaminants that we have put in the environment, and how that creates disease in our bodies. Today, we're going to learn about vaccines and medicines in order to learn about how to protect our bodies. And then we will continue tomorrow about other non-medical ways of protecting our bodies. No, we're continuing. We're doing non-medical ways today too. Sorry, I forgot about how the lessons were broken up. Tomorrow we're doing other ways to help, like safety equipment and things like that, I believe. Anyway, we'll see. Who knows? Today we're looking at lesson 11. That is the important part. We're looking at lesson 11 today, which is medical and non-medical ways to protect yourself from environmental factors. So our learning goal is that you'll be able to identify and describe medical methods of preventing against environmental contaminants. You will be able to identify and describe various non-medical methods for protecting against environmental agents. You know, you've met these learning goals because you can explain how vaccines strengthen our bodies, how they strengthen our body's fighting mechanisms, and you can explain how medicines keep us safe, and you can describe the protecting factors of sunscreen, sun protective clothing, respirators, and hearing protection. All right, so we have learned about some common environmental factors like air pollution, UV radiation, and pathogens. Then we've learned about how the human body reacts when it's exposed to these things. And now we're going to learn about how there are medical and non-medical ways to protect yourself from the harmful effects of environmental factors. So we're going to look at a few examples of this. So first, medical protections. Let's talk about vaccines. This I know can be a challenging topic as there's various opinions, but we're going to try to look at it from medically scientifically what's actually happening. I am pro-vaccine. I will admit to my bias right away. So I encourage folks, am vaccinated and encourage folks to be vaccinated well to support our communities as a whole. So people use vaccines to protect themselves from many of the pathogens that cause illness and sometimes even death. In Canada, most vaccines are injected into our bodies using needles. Scientists are also looking at new ways of giving vaccines that through ingestion or inhalation through nose sprays. So we've talked about how how toxins get into our body through injection, ingestion, or inhalation. Vaccines currently are just injected, though possibly there might be other options in the future. Vaccines are also known as immunizations, needles, or shots, just to make sure we know what we're talking about. So most of us have received at least one shot at one time in our lives. Obviously, can't say everybody has, but most folks have. Chances are you've received shot for diseases like diphtheria, whooping cough, and polio. You may never even have heard of these diseases. However, in the 19th and early 20th centuries, they were well known. They struck hundreds of thousands of people in North America each year. Tens of thousands of people died from these diseases. Now, hardly anyone in North America gets these diseases. This change happened largely because of vaccines. So this is a chart that I've taken out of your workbook, and it shows you the rate of these 3 diseases in Canada between the years of 1924 to 2005, roughly, slightly different depending on which one we're looking at. So diphtheria. So again, you may not know these, but diphtheria in the early 19th century, so in 1924, you can see we had how this graph we read is about 90 people per 100,000 people had diphtheria. And then it dramatically dropped in the 1930s and still a little bit, but then by the 1950s, it all but is gone. Then basically nobody has diphtheria. And this is because of vaccines. So mostly. So people are vaccinated and now our bodies know how to manage and how to fight this ailment. Then in whooping cough, again, you can see in the early 1900s that we were having up to 160, 180 people per 100,000 people who had whooping cough. And then again, in the 1950s, it decreased. And though it is not eradicated, it's not like we don't have it at all. It is much lower because our bodies with vaccines know how to fight whooping cough. Then polio, So this is from 1959. So there was, the number of cases was at 4,500 in Canada in the 1950s. And then by the 1965, it's basically gone. Mostly nobody gets polio. Again, because of vaccinations, mostly. So our bodies with vaccines are able to fight these diseases, and they are no longer debilitating people, no longer killing people, because these all had detrimental effects to communities. So this is the picture of the publicly funded immunization schedule for Ontario. So this is how in Ontario, how we protect ourselves against those diphtheria, polio, and whooping cough, but also against lots of other things. So this happens, a lot of these vaccinations happen really early. So they start at 2 months, then 4 months, 6 months to 12 months, 15 months, 18 months. A lot of this happens under those 2 years, in the first 18 months. And then when you're 4 to 6 years old, and then when you're in grade 7, grade 8, and then a teenager, those are when you get some other ones. So some of these happen at school, and some of them have multiple vaccinations in one shot. So here, like at 2 months old, you need to have 3 shots, which I've experienced, and it sucks with a newborn. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things in the first shot, and then 1 thing in each of the second shots. So you're getting vaccinated against various things, and they are combined based on what scientists and medical practitioners believe makes sense. So this is something that is very well researched and very well defined about how this all works. And then you have boosters that help your body overall. So these charts are really clear. You can find them online. That shows you how vaccinations, what are the various things that we get vaccinated with. One thing that I think is interesting is that now at 15 months, children get vaccinated for chickenpox. This is something that I had as a kid had chickenpox. So in the past 30 years or so, we've developed a new vaccination, and so it means that there are less chickenpox. Kids aren't having chickenpox anymore. Even when my kid was an infant, and one of the health practitioners had to get help from another health practitioner because she wasn't sure if a rash was chickenpox, because she'd never seen it, because kids are not getting chickenpox, whereas when I was a kid, everybody was getting chickenpox. So it's just interesting that how quickly things can really have an impact. Obviously, this is before COVID. This probably will be updated to include COVID vaccination as in that schedule as well. I'm not sure how that works right now. Folks are just getting it when it's available to their age group. Okay, so vaccines protect you against spreadable or infectious diseases caused by microbes. Microbes are microscopic organisms like bacteria and viruses. Vaccines work by taking advantage of your body's natural ability to learn how to eliminate microbes that attack it. The parts of your body that do this are called your immune system. Some microbes are so powerful and virulent that vaccines are needed to help your immune system. So your immune system can fight off certain things, but some microbes, some diseases are so strong that your body needs some support. Most vaccines contain microbes that have been killed or weakened. They have been weakened so they will not cause the disease when they are injected into your body. This is a big piece of why people are afraid of vaccines, is because the vaccine, the medication that is being put into your body, does contain something that is connected to the thing that you're trying to avoid. That is how they know that that's how it can learn how to fight that thing, is because they put in something that is either dead or very, very weak. So you won't get sick, but this is how your body learns that that's how to fight against it. But that's why people are scared. After being injected with a vaccine, your immune system builds antibodies to fight off the microbes. The antibodies attach to the microbes and render them harmless. So this is why sometimes after you get a vaccine, your body, you do get sore. You get muscle aches, you get a fever, because your body is learning how to fight that ailment. And so this is your body learning how to fight it makes you feel a little bit sick. Special white blood cells can then identify the microbes and kill them. These antibodies will stay in your body for a long time and will fight off the microbes in the future. Often your immune system will be able to fight off a disease for the rest of your life. Sometimes it will need what is called a booster shot of the vaccine to reinforce its ability to fight off the disease. That's what's going on right now with COVID-19, is that we've had to have many boosters, or we continue to have boosters because as they're still learning about it and trying to make the best vaccine possible. In order to protect ourselves, we're getting boosters in order to continue to be able to fight off, and our immune system learning how to protect ourselves. Once your immune system has been conditioned by a vaccine to resist the microbes that cause a certain disease, you are said to be immune to that disease. So the same way that, as I was talking about chickenpox before, my body learned how to fight chickenpox when I had it. That's how it actually works with chickenpox, is that your body is strong enough to learn how to fight it, and means that I've never gotten chickenpox after that one time. I didn't get it. Similarly, my kid hasn't been exposed to chickenpox, or hasn't gotten chickenpox, but now has had the vaccine, and so his body knows how to protect himself from chickenpox, even though he never had chickenpox. But because of the vaccine, that means that he's protected against chickenpox, just like I am, though I had it and he didn't. Before vaccines, the only way to become immune to virulent diseases was to get the disease and survive it. This is called natural acquired immunity. Like I was just talking about with chickenpox, I survived having chickenpox, and so I now have a natural acquired immunity to chickenpox, whereas my kiddo is immune to it, but it's not naturally because he had a vaccine. Vaccines provide artificially acquired immunity because you do not have to get the disease to be immune to it. So vaccines protect both individuals and communities. If a certain number of people within a community are vaccinated against disease, the entire group becomes less likely to get it. This protection is called herd immunity. Herd immunity covers even those in the community who are not vaccinated against the disease. So a vaccine protects an individual person, but some people can't get vaccinated because they are too young, because they have a different condition, and that it is they're immunocompromised. They have various other medical conditions that they can't be protected, so they can't get the vaccine themselves. So people who can get that vaccine protects. It means that the people who can't, because of other reasons, are protected. So we're going to watch a video that shows really clearly how vaccines work. So we're going to listen to it, but also I strongly encourage you to actually watch this video if you are just listening today, because the visualization really helps you understand how vaccines work and how it protects your body. Check that out once I upload it, and I can link it so you can go back to the original source to find it there. Let's see, come on, work for me, please.
To understand how vaccines work, it helps to look first at how the immune system works, because vaccines harness the natural activity of your immune system. There are about 100 trillion bacteria and viruses on your body. Not all of them cause disease, but some are able to get inside our bodies to multiply, and this can make us ill. There are barriers to stop this happening, but suppose some disease-causing bacteria do get through. Your immune system is quick to recognize them as invaders. This is because the proteins or sugars on the bacteria's surface have different shapes to any of the ones in a human body. They trigger a complex chain of events involving many different types of white blood cells working together. One type of white blood cell is able to make antibodies to fight the invaders. Antibodies can stick to the proteins or sugars on the bacteria's surface, and this kills the bacteria or disables them. However, not all antibodies will work against these bacteria. They have to be exactly the right shape, a bit like a key fitting a lock. Our bodies have a library of billions of white blood cells, each of which can make just one shape of antibody. Only a few of these antibodies will match the invading bacteria. Producing antibodies of the right shape can take several days. By this time, there could be billions of disease-causing bacteria in your body. Once the right cells are activated, they quickly divide and turn into a production line, making masses of antibodies that stick to the bacteria. Eventually, your body gets rid of all the bacteria and you recover. Antibodies remain in the blood, and some white blood cells may also become memory cells. If those specific bacteria invade the body again, the immune system will respond so quickly that you won't get ill. Vaccines work in the same way. They contain weakened or dead bacteria or viruses, or even just a few proteins or sugars from the surface. This is enough to convince the immune system that a real invader has got in. The same process takes place as when real bacteria or viruses invade our bodies, except you don't get ill. Afterwards, if your body ever meets the real thing, your immune system will remember it and get rid of it before you even know it's there.
All right, so that showed us how vaccines actually work.
Which I think is just really, really helpful to understand, as I know that vaccines can be confusing and our society has various feelings about them. All right, so now what about medications? Because we have vaccines, but what are medications and how are they different? So when vaccines are not available, people can sometimes take medications to prevent diseases from occurring. They can also take medicines to treat the symptoms of disease and to help cure diseases. When traveling to an area of the world where malaria occurs, people can avoid getting the disease by doing two things. One, they can prevent mosquito bites by wearing long sleeve shirts and long pants, sleeping under mosquito nets, and using DEET-based products. Or two, they can take anti-malaria medication to kill the parasites that cause malaria. This is just one example to understand. Malaria parasites in certain parts of the world have become resistant to certain medications. So as a result, the type of medication a person takes depends on where they're traveling. No matter what type of medication a person takes, it will not provide 100% protection against the disease. Anti-malaria medications can also cause additional negative reactions called side effects. They include nausea, headaches, and sleep disturbances. So here, malaria, this map is showing malaria was prevalent in many parts of the world that are free of malaria today. So you can see the gray is historically free of malaria. So the gray is places where malaria has never really been, including most of Canada. Then the lightest orange is historically distribution of malaria until the 1900s. And this was 53% of the world's land surface. So 53% of the world was covered, had malaria was a concern. Then as we get closer, as our orange and then red becomes darker, and then finally in purple, in 2002, 27% of the world's land surface is where malaria is now a concern. So this dark purple is where malaria currently is. So parts of Central America, South America, Africa, Southern Asia are the places where malaria is still was a concern 20 years ago. I wasn't able to find something that is more current, but still, this shows us how dramatically medications have changed to make malaria not as much of a threat. So global malaria deaths by world region. So this is up to 2020. So this is more recent data, though it's a graph. So we can see that Africa in 2000 was responsible for over 800,000 deaths related to malaria. This light pink brownish paint color is where Africa is. So Africa is really the place that has the biggest struggle. But even with medications now in 2020, this was down to 600,000 people. Still a lot of people, but a work in progress. Then you can see these other parts of the world, the Americas, Western Pacific, Eastern Mediterranean, and Southeast Asia are these other colors. So you can see are all quite small in comparison, and haven't changed too much. A little bit. They've definitely changed in the last 20. Oh, sorry, this is all in 2000. Sorry, the last like 3 or 4 years to be quite small. So, but Africa still is really the place that needs support or is working hard. I know that they're working hard. So then let's look at how our body processes medicine. How is medicine different than vaccination? How does it actually work? How does it know how to protect your body? What it is that your body is trying to be protected against. So we're going to watch a TED video as well.
Have you ever wondered what happens to a painkiller, like ibuprofen, after you swallow it? Medicine that slides down your throat can help treat a headache, a sore back, or a throbbing sprained ankle. But how does it get where it needs to go in the first place? The answer is that it hitches a ride in your circulatory bloodstream, cycling through your body in a race to do its job before it's snared by organs and molecules designed to neutralize and expel foreign substances. This process starts in your digestive system. Say you swallow an ibuprofen tablet for a sore ankle. Within minutes, the tablet starts disintegrating in the acidic fluids of your stomach. The dissolved ibuprofen travels into the small intestine and then across the intestinal wall into a network of blood vessels. These blood vessels feed into a vein, which carries the blood and anything in it to the liver. The next step is to make it through the liver. As the blood and the drug molecules in it travel through liver blood vessels, enzymes attempt to react with the ibuprofen molecules to neutralize them. The damaged ibuprofen molecules, called metabolites, may no longer be effective as painkillers. At this stage, most of the ibuprofen makes it through the liver unscathed. It continues its journey out of the liver, through veins, into the body's circulatory system. Half an hour after you swallow the pill, some of the dose has already made it into the circulatory bloodstream. This blood loop travels through every limb and organ, including the heart, brain, kidneys, and back through the liver. When ibuprofen molecules encounter a location where the body's pain response is in full swing, they bind to specific target molecules that are part of that reaction. Painkillers like ibuprofen block the production of compounds that help the body transmit pain signals. As more drug molecules accumulate, the pain-canceling effect increases, reaching a maximum within about 1 or 2 hours. Then the body starts efficiently eliminating ibuprofen, with the blood dose decreasing by half every 2 hours on average. When the ibuprofen molecules detach from their targets, the systemic bloodstream carries them away again. Back in the liver, another small fraction of the total amount of the drug gets transformed into metabolites, which are eventually filtered out by the kidneys in the urine. The loop from liver to body to kidneys continues at a rate of about 1 blood cycle per minute, with a little more of the drug neutralized and filtered out in each cycle. These basic steps are the same for any drug that you take orally, but the speed of the process and the amount of medicine that makes it into your bloodstream varies based on drug, person, and how it gets into the body. The dosing instructions on medicine labels can help, but they're averages based on a sample population that doesn't represent every consumer. And getting the dose right is important. If it's too low, the medicine won't do its job. If it's too high, the drug and its metabolites can be toxic. That's true of any drug. One of the hardest groups of patients to get the right dosage for are children. That's because how they process medicine changes quickly, as do their bodies. For instance, the level of liver enzymes that neutralize medication highly fluctuates during infancy and childhood. And that's just one of many complicating factors. Genetics, age, diet, disease, and even pregnancy influence the body's efficiency of processing medicine. Someday, routine DNA tests may be able to dial in the precise dose of medicine personalized to your liver efficiency and other factors. But in the meantime, your best bet is reading the label or consulting your doctor or pharmacist and taking the recommended amounts with the recommended timing.
All right, so that shows us how medication works in your body and why it's important, like why we have different doses, why we need to take things at different times or take medication a few times a day, why it's important to continue when you're taking like an antibiotic, why you need to continue taking the whole medication because of how like the whole cycle, don't stop just because you're feeling better, because it's how your body processes it. So now you're able to do the check your understanding questions 1 and 2 on page 88 that talk about medication and vaccines. All right, so what are non-medical protections? So we're going to talk about a few specific examples. We're going to talk about first about sunscreen and sun protective clothing. So many people use sunscreen to protect themselves from sunburn. Most sunscreens will have an SPF, which is a sun protection factor, on the label. The SPF represents the length of time that sunscreen protected skin can be exposed to UV rays before it turns red compared to the length of time it takes on unprotected skin. So for example, if your skin burns after 30 minutes in the sun without protection, then an SPF 15 sunscreen will allow you to spend up to 450 minutes, 15 times longer, in the sun without getting burned. SPF only refers to protection from UVB rays. So remember we talked about before with radiation, how there's different kinds of UV rays, and SPF only protects from UVB rays. However, many sunscreens offer broad spectrum protection. So this means they protect against both UVB and UVA rays. Broad spectrum sunscreens usually contain chemical filters that absorb UV radiation and release it as heat. They can also contain small particles of zinc oxide or titanium dioxide that scatter and reflect UVB and UVA rays. Another way people protect themselves from UV radiation is by wearing sun protective clothing. So specifically made sun protective clothing is rated using UPF, ultraviolet protection factor. Unlike SPF, UPF measures protection from both UVB and UVA rays. Clothing is considered sun protective if it has a UPF of at least 15. So some comparison of the pros, compare the two. So SPF and sunscreen, it again only applies to UVB rays. You have to apply it to your skin before you head outside. It needs to be reapplied after sweating, swimming, or toweling. It can be tricky to get full coverage. I know I've definitely had the little bit of fat on my back where I didn't reach, had a little sunburn and just one little spot. It needs to be reapplied every 2 hours. And how an SPF is that it's 15. If it's SPF 15, it's 15 times longer to protect your skin against no sunscreen. UPF clothing, again, applies to UV and UVB rays. It's as effective as soon as you put it on because it's on. It won't sweat off or wash off with water. It provides less risk of missing spots or poor application. It never needs reapplication because you just keep clothes on. And UPF of 50 continuously blocks 98% of 98% of UV rays. So in here is the typical types of ingredients for sunscreen. So you can have physical ingredients that are physical blockers, so titanium dioxide and zinc oxide. It's safer for sensitive skin types and can cause less irritation. Often you sort of have this white cast on it, so that can be something that folks don't like. And it does protect against both UVA and UVB. Whereas chemical ones have various other chemicals, avobenzone, homosalate, oxybenzoin, all sorts of things, chemicals that are the filters. It's light, it's elegant texture with 0 white cast, so it doesn't feel as sticky often. But some UV filters can be sensitizing. You can have a reaction to it and things like that. And here is a picture of what UPF clothing looks like. So all of this family has all these outfits out on the beach, have long sleeves. They're light, they're not hot, but they keep their skin protected. So with SPF, as you get the higher the number, the more protected you are. So it's SPF of 50 has about a 98% sun filter, just like UPF 50. It's about how long it stays effective on your skin that counts, not just about the number. So SPF 15 is 93%, SPF 30 is 97%, SPF 50 is 98%. So SPF 100 is just kind of like, is it much better than SPF 50? Makes you feel like it is because it's a big number, but is that just a marketing tactic? And is it really doing everything that you want it to do? So with the rating scale for UPF, it's absorbed by the fabric. The ultraviolet radiation is absorbed by the fabric and not your skin. So it's the same, the higher the UPF rating, the more you're protected. UPF of 15 to 24 blocks 93.3 to 95.9 radiation, up to UPF of 40 to 50 is 97.5 to 98% of the radiation is blocked. So that's sun protection. So then respirators are protective devices that are worn over the mouth and nose to protect the user from contaminants in the air. They can also be worn over the entire face or head. Firefighters, construction workers, healthcare workers, and others who come into contact with airborne hazards are more likely to wear respirators. So this is a little bit more than just a mask. So here's an image of an air purifying respirator, or short APRs. They use filters to remove airborne contaminants like particulate matter from the air. So they're actually purifying the air that you breathe. Other APRs absorb chemical gases and microbes in a cartridge or a canister. Most APRs depend on the user drawing in surrounding air as they inhale into the mouth or the face mask. Some APRs have air blowers to help move the air into the respirator. Then we have supplied air respirators, or SARs. And SARs supply the user with clean air from a compressed air tank or through an airline. So this is giving you clean air, whereas the other ones are just filtering the air. They're more often used in extremely hazardous environments. For example, they allow firefighters to work in burning buildings filled with smoke. Having just an air filter would mean that you still don't get enough to breathe, whereas these ones give you air. They're also used when there are toxic industrial contaminants in the air that are life-threatening. So those are air filters, or air respirators, sorry. So then let's look at hearing protection. So people often wear different kinds of hearing protectors in the workplace to reduce their exposure to noise pollution and the risks of hearing loss. People choose to wear different protectors based on the noise level and how comfortable the protector is to wear. There are two main types of hearing protectors: earplugs, usually made of foam that is inserted into the ear canal to block sounds, and earmuffs that are made up of sound reducing material and soft ear cushions covered by hard outer caps. They also can be both worn together for the best protection. So here are some images of earplugs that could be tied onto a rope or have a plastic connector in some sort, or just could be little plugs that you put in your ear on your own. The advantage of these is that they're small and easy to carry. They're simple to use. They're not very expensive. They can be convenient. They can be comfortable to wear in hot, humid work areas. But the disadvantages are that they provide less noise protection than earmuffs. If you want a custom one, they require time to fit them. They can be difficult to insert and to remove. They have to be properly inserted to provide effective protection. They can not be useful. They require good hygiene practices to avoid dirt and bacteria entering your ears and causing ear infections. They could irritate your ear canal, and they are easy to misplace because they're just these little things. Whereas earmuffs, here's an image of earmuffs that go over your ears. The advantages are they more consistent noise reducing ability among various people. They're designed that one size fits most head sizes. They're durable and have replacement parts. Easily seen at a distance to assist monitoring their use. So if people aren't wearing them properly, it's easy to tell and you can help. They're not easy to be misplaced or lost because they're big and bulky. And if you have a minor ear infection, you can still wear them. But the disadvantage is that they are not very portable and they are heavy to wear. They can be more expensive generally. They can be more inconvenient to use with other personal protective equipment, like if you have glasses or safety goggles, if you're wearing any sort of something that needs to be right up against the skin. And they can be uncomfortable to wear in hot, humid work areas. So now you can do the review questions, your check understanding questions 1 and 2 on page 91. All right, so let's consolidate. What have we covered today? So we have done a lot. So we've completed lesson 11, which are medical and non-medical ways to protect yourself from environmental factors. So first, the medical protections were vaccines and medicines, which we went into great detail. And then the non-medical protections that protect your body include sunscreen and sun protective clothing, respirators, and hearing protection. All of these things are good to protect your body from those environmental factors we've been talking about. So hopefully you're now feeling comfortable that you can explain how vaccines strengthen the body's fighting mechanisms. You can explain how medicines keep you safe. And you can describe the protective factors of sunscreen, sun protective clothing, respirators, and hearing protection. So you should be ready to do the review questions on page 93, questions 1 through 13. All right, so a reminder that if you have any questions, please reach out and connect with us here at Wahsa. Bronwyn, and your instructor, so I'm the one, if you have questions specifically about the lessons that I have taught, reach out to me, or you can reach out to me and I can direct you to John if your question makes more sense to ask to him about marking. My email address is bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. And you can call me at 1-800-667-3703. My extension is 2209. Remember, all of our lessons are recorded and uploaded to YouTube under the SVN3E highlight. John is your course marker. John is the one who will be marking your work when you hand it in. And his email address is jstradiotto@nnec.on.ca. So you can send things directly to him, or you can send questions directly to his email address. You can call him both at the 1-800 number, but also at our local office number, 807-737-1488. And his extension is 2210. Again, if you have questions specifically about questions that are being marked, contacting him directly will probably set you up for the most success. His office hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 3:30, and he takes lunch from 12:30 to 1:30, so isn't available at that time. So please reach out to both of us or either of us if you have questions, and we can connect to each other, whoever might make the most sense to answer your questions. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've learned how to help keep yourself protected from the environmental factors that we've been talking about. I'll talk to you again soon. Mwich.